Hello, I'm Mrs. Jansen, and before we create our art, we're going to observe or look carefully at bees. The first thing I want you to notice is that these are the same type of bee, but they do look different. Let's look closely at the stripes. I'd like you to notice that some bees have more stripes than others. The stripes look different. Some of them are more curved and wider. Some of them are straight and narrower. I'd also like you to notice the wings. They're transparent. That means you can see through them. I hope you've noticed the geometric shape you see in the hive. It's a hexagon with 6 sides. Let's look at this bee closely. Notice that these wings are transparent, even though the coloring is different than the bees we saw before. I'd like you to notice the markings on the body of this bee. Take a close look at the black stripes and notice how here you see the yellow in between those black stripes, and it appears that there's a large vertical black stripe down the center of the body of the bee. Our first vocabulary word is value, and value is an art element. It means the lightness or darkness of a color. Here you see what's called a value scale or gray scale. White is the lightest value, black is the darkest. Value is something that you can see in other colors besides white and black. You can create value using different techniques, and you can create value with different colors. Our next vocabulary word is aerial view or viewpoint. This is often called a bird's eye view. This is an elevated view from the perspective of a bird. The bird is the viewer, looking down from above. Our next vocabulary words are depth and three-dimensional. Depth is the illusion of three-dimensional space on a flat surface. This illusion can be created with color, line, shape, and value. Three-dimensional is the illusion of occupying space. For example, shapes are two-dimensional. They have width and length. Forms, however, are three-dimensional. They give the illusion that they occupy space and have width, length, and depth. Here's some interesting facts about bees. Bees must learn how to make honey in the hive. There are 1,600 species or different types of bees that are native to California. Honeybees must gather nectar from 2 million flowers to make 1 pound of honey. Bees have 2 stomachs, one for collecting nectar and one for storing what they eat. North Dakota is the highest honey producing state in our country, 40 million pounds a year. California produces around 13 million pounds a year. Here you have what's called an illustration of a bee. You're going to notice that this was drawn very carefully and all the parts of the bee have been labeled. In our art, we're going to focus on the 3 main parts, the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. I want you to notice the texture that you see in the thorax. It looks fuzzy or furry. Ruth Heller is the artist that influences our art today. She was a historic American artist born in Manitoba, Canada, who moved to San Francisco when she was 6. She created most of her art using colored pencil and marker. She's written and illustrated 23 books of fiction and nonfiction, and she's also created 24 coloring and puzzle books. I'd like you to notice her artwork on the cover of these 2 books. She's drawn bees and she also shows value. So now we're going to create our art together, and we're going to draw bees. Please have a paper and a pencil and your crayons for later. You're going to see my screen change so that we can draw together. So the interesting thing about our artwork today is that we can start our paper in any direction of your choice. We're going to draw flying bees, so we want to make it appear that they're flying in from different directions. So, for example, I'm going to start with my paper, portrait style, and what you need to know is we're going to draw a bee flying step by step. And we can continue to draw it in the same way, turning our paper, and it will look like it's flying in a different direction. So we are going to draw a bee, but our bee is going to be stylized. You're going to notice how you can see your own artistic style. So first I'm going to start with a curved line like a rainbow, and then we're going to think about simple shape. We're going to use what I'm going to call an organic oval. That means a shape in nature that's not geometric. It's not perfect on all the sides. I'm also going to think about the abdomen, and I'm going to think of this abdomen as an oval that's overlapped by the oval that we used for the thorax. So here we've got the main part of the bee: the head, the thorax, and the body. So let's go back to the head, and we're going to add 2 small curved lines for the eyes. And you can color those in with your pencil. Now we're going to add the antennas. We're going to go in between the eyes with a shape that might remind you of a grain of rice. And I added that first shape, and now I'm going to add the next shape in a different direction. Now I'm going to add the next antenna with the same shape, and then I'm going to add another shape on top of it in a different direction. Now when we looked at the illustrations, we noticed that the thorax had texture, a fur-like texture. So we can go back, use any lines or marks to show texture. And now we're going to go to the abdomen. So we can decide if our bee is going to have a stinger. If you would like to show a stinger, we're going to add curved lines that look like the letter V at the bottom. And now we can think about the stripes. And we noticed that the stripes look different on different bees. So you get to decide, I'm going to add my stripes more rounded to give the illusion that my bee isn't flat and is more three-dimensional or has form. Now, one thing that you may or may not have noticed is that all the legs come from the thorax. So we're going to draw the legs of the bee first. A bee has 6 legs. We're going to use the same shape that we used on the antenna. We're going to add a shape that's larger that looks like a grain of rice. And then we're going to add the same shape on top. We're going to add 3 small circles before we draw the foot of the bee. And the foot of the bee is going to look like an uppercase M. We can add some marks inside the legs for texture. Let's go to this side and draw this front leg, and they don't have to look exactly the same. Remember, the bee we're drawing is flying, so the legs could be in a different position. So add those two shapes, add the 3 circles and the M, and then go back and add the texture. Now we're going to go toward the bottom of the thorax, and we're going to add the back legs. The 2 shapes that might remind you of the grain of rice, the 3 little circles, and we're going to add the letter M for the feet. Go back in and add some texture marks. And now I'm going to go on this side. Same 2 shapes. It's okay if this leg looks different than the other. Add the 3 circles and the M. Alright, so now I've got the 4 legs drawn, and I've got to look at the bee that I've drawn and decide, where am I going to put the other 2 back legs? If you have enough room, you might fit the leg in between the leg you've drawn and the body of the bee. Or if you don't, you can draw it on the other side. So go ahead and make the choice that you believe is best for your artwork. I'm going to fit the leg in the space in between. So 2 shapes, 3 circles, and the M. And then go back and add the texture. So same 2 shapes, 3 circles, and the M for the foot. And add the texture. Alright, now we're ready to draw the wings. We're going to add a curved line out. And let's go on this side and add another curved line out. Now we're going to go underneath and add a smaller curve. And now we're going to add a smaller curve here. Alright, now that we've got these 2 curved lines on both sides, we're going to connect this curved line to the one on the bottom. And then we're going to carefully draw a shape of a wing. Let's go to this side. I'm going to bring this curved line down to the one on the bottom, and then I'm going to carefully draw the shape of a wing. These bees are flying and their wings are moving. Don't worry if the wings look different. So even though the wings are transparent, we can see through them, we notice texture. So I'm going to add a line in the center of each of these wings. And then I'm going to add lines that go in different directions. So I added a line that looks more like a sideways V, and I don't want it to look exactly the same. So I'm going to turn the V in a different direction. And then after I've done that, I'm just going to go in between with a squiggly line in different directions so it looks more natural. And I'm going to do the same thing on this lower wing, changing the direction of that V or diagonal lines, and then I add the squiggle lines in different ways, not all the same, to make the bee's wing look more natural. Now we can go to this wing and add the V's in different directions and the squiggly lines in different places to give that wing texture. Alright, so now we've got this bee flying in this direction, And we can draw a second bee in the same way, but this time I want the bee to be flying in a different direction. I do not have to draw this bee exactly the same. It can be larger, it can be smaller, the stripes can be different. The first thing I'm going to start with is that curved line like a rainbow for the head. And then I'm going to add that organic oval. Remember, it's a natural oval, so it doesn't have to be perfect on all sides. Now I'm going to add the oval for the abdomen. I'm going to go back to the head and add those two small curved lines like rainbows, and I'm going to shade those in. Got to go back to this thorax and add texture. Use any lines or marks that you would like to use to show texture. Now you can decide whether or not you would like this bee to have a stinger. If you do, go ahead and add curved lines that form the V. And you can also decide on the stripes. You can draw the stripes differently than you did on the first bee. Now I'm going to go back to the head and I'm going to add the antennas. Remember those 2 grains of rice? And they can go in different directions. And now I'm going to add the front legs. 2 grains of rice larger than the antennas, the 3 circles, and the M. Let's go on this side. 2 grains of rice, 3 circles, and the M. Remember, you can go back inside to show texture. Now we're going to add the back legs. The 2 shapes, like grains of rice, the 3 circles, and the M. And now I need to look at the bee I've drawn and decide where I'm going to place the additional 2 back legs. Decide if you have enough room in between the leg you've drawn and the body. If you don't, you can draw it on the outside. I'm going to draw mine between the leg and the body, those 2 shapes, the 3 circles, and the M. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. You can go back in and add texture. Right, now let's make the wings. Curved line at the top and a smaller one at the bottom. Curved line at the top and a smaller one at the bottom. It's okay if they don't look exactly the same. Let's connect the top curved line to the bottom on both sides. And now let's go underneath and add this bottom wing carefully. Now we're going to add the texture again. Start with a line in the center of the wings, and then add those diagonal lines that look like V's in different directions. Remember, after the V's, you're going to use squiggly lines in different areas. They're not all the same. We want it to look natural. So our goal was never to create a realistic bee. Our goal was to create a bee that shows our artistic style. So we've got 2 bees, and the next thing we're going to talk about is what the honeycomb or the hive looks like. And I'm just going to show you another example where I added the hexagon. So in this example, you can see that I've drawn the hexagon and the bees are flying in different directions. I haven't drawn the whole hive. I'm only drawing part of it. So I decided how I was going to arrange the hexagons. And then I decided I wanted to have a third bee, but I didn't have to draw the whole thing. I just drew the head. So every time I drew a bee, I could change the direction of my paper and draw it the same way. So it's up to you how you finish your artwork today. There's going to be some artists in our group today that decide they'd like to keep their artwork in pencil. You can use value in your artwork by adding different pressure of the pencil and shading. Other artists in our group are going to decide that they'd like to finish their artwork with crayon. It's up to you how you color your bees. You may want to think about blending, especially on the thorax, using different colors, maybe a really light orange with a yellow and to make that tan or golden color. I hope you've enjoyed drawing bees today. I'm going to close out this drawing and go back to the photograph of bees. It's been great to make art with you today. I hope you enjoyed drawing bees, and I look forward to making art with you again soon.